Allah did not answer immediately. He only tightened his grip on the book in his hand. What the old man had just said sounded utterly absurd. But what had happened since this morning was even more absurd. The man who brought the book had vanished from the memory of the entire town, and the symbol that had just appeared on the cover was something Allah had never seen in any language. He took a deep breath. "Who are you?" The old man smiled. "If I answer, will you believe me?" Allah remained silent. The old man continued. "Humans always ask for a name first, while what they truly want to know is whether the person across from them is worthy of trust." Allah slowed his pace. The old man did not seem frightening at all. His brown cloak was faded. His shoes were covered in dust. His hands were full of calluses, the hands of someone who traveled a great deal rather than someone who held a sword. He looked more like a traveler than any mage. "You know this book?" "I do." "What is it?" "I do not know." Allah frowned. "You just said you know it." "Correct. I know it, but I do not know what it is." The old man looked at the book for a long time. Then he spoke in a very low voice. "Those are two different questions." Allah did not argue. For the first time in his life, someone's answer made him think longer than a question would. The old man turned around. "Follow me." "Where to?" "To a place where you can continue to exist." Allah stood still. "Why do you think I will follow you?" The old man did not turn back. He simply replied gently, "Because from the moment you opened that book, you began to ask questions that you will never stop seeking answers to for the rest of your life. But if you go back," he looked up at the sky, "by tonight, the flower girl's mother will forget your face." Allah felt his heart sink. 3 days from now, your neighbors will not remember your name. A week, the bakery own. "Who are you, child?" "A month." The old man gently closed his eyes. "You yourself will begin to doubt if you ever existed." The wind suddenly died down. The entire square seemed to plunge into a strange silence. Allah looked around. People were still laughing and talking. Children were still chasing one another. No one looked at him. No one looked at the old man, as if the two of them were standing in a parallel world. Allah suddenly realized the white bird on the old man's shoulder had not flapped its wings once. This entire time, it just stood there, silent, watching, just like its master. The old man extended his hand toward Allah. "Give me the book." Allah shook his head. "No." "Good." The old man smiled. "If you had handed it over immediately, I would have been disappointed." Allah caught himself. "Why?" "Because a person who easily gives away a story to someone else will also easily let others write their own story." He lowered his hand. His gaze softened. "I do not want that to happen to you." For the first time, Allah felt that the man before him did not want to take the book at all. He only wanted to know whether Allah had enough courage to hold on to something he did not yet understand. The old man turned and walked away, slowly, without any rush. After a few steps, he stopped, without turning his head. "Ah, I forgot." Allah looked up. "There is one thing you should know." He pointed slightly at the lantern hanging by Allah's hip. "Never let that lantern go out after the sun sets." Allah looked down at the lantern. "Why?" The old man smiled faintly. This time, the smile was no longer gentle, but carried a very deep sorrow. "Because the thing that is searching for the book is also searching for you." He walked on, heading toward the end of the street. Allah stood frozen for a few seconds. Then he gripped the bundle of papers at his hip tightly, hugged the white book to his chest, and for the first time in 16 years, he left the town of Aram to follow a man whose name he did not even know. Behind his back, the sound of wind chimes echoed again. But this time, among the dozens of familiar clinking sounds, there was one sound that came across like someone had just gently turned a page. There was one thing that Allah only realized when he had left Aram far behind. The desert was quieter than he had ever thought. When he was still in the town, the wind always carried the voices of people, the sound of wind chimes, the laughter of children playing, and the smell of freshly baked bread. But after only half a day of walking, all those sounds disappeared. Only the sound of drifting sand remained. The old man was still walking ahead. He did not introduce his name. He did not ask Allah anything. Nor did he ever turn his head to see if Allah was still following behind. It was as if he knew. If Allah had decided to walk, then he would not turn back. By midday, the sunlight began to get harsh. The old man stopped under a low cliff. He took out a small water flask from his bag, handed it to Allah. "Thank you." Allah took a sip. The water was ice cold, so cold that he was startled. In the middle of the desert, a flask of cold water was almost impossible. Allah was about to ask, but then he stopped. He began to understand. Being next to this man, not every question needed to be asked right away. There are answers that come too early and will ruin the whole journey. The two of them continued to walk until the sun began to lean toward the west. The old man suddenly stopped, looked down. Allah lowered his head. "Sand. Only sand. What do you see?" "Footprints." "Whose?" "Ours." The old man shook his head. "No." Allah looked closer. Right at that moment, his heart suddenly tightened. On the sand, there was only one row of footprints. Not two. One. The old man was standing in front of him, clearly walking. But behind him, he left no trace at all. There were only Allah's footprints stretching across the sand. He looked up. His throat went dry. "You? Who are you?" The old man smiled. "For the first time, you asked the right question." He did not answer, just kept walking. This time, Allah did not ask anymore. He only looked down at the sand. Each footprint he pressed down, the wind immediately erased it. He suddenly thought, maybe human memories are just like that. If there is no one to keep them, a single gust of wind is enough to sweep everything away. Late in the afternoon, the two of them arrived in front of a narrow ravine. Looking from afar, it was only like a crack on the cliff. There were no guide signs. There was no path. The old man stepped inside. Allah followed. Inside, it was cool and cold. The sound of the wind disappeared. Instead, it was the sound of water dripping down from the stone ceiling. The path grew darker and darker. Allah took the lamp at his side, lit the fire. The pale yellow light spread out, enough to see the cliffs on both sides. Right then, the old man spoke up. "Do you know why I told you not to let the lamp go out?" Allah shook his head. "Because." He stopped. "Light is not for showing the way." Allah frowned. "Then what is it for?" The old man reached out his hand, gently pointed to Allah's shadow on the cliff. "To let the darkness know where you are." Allah didn't understand yet. A very soft sound echoed from behind. It was not the sound of footsteps, but more like someone was using their fingernails, gently scratching on the stone surface. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Allah turned around sharply. There was no one. The lamp in his hand suddenly shook slightly. The flame that was originally still suddenly leaned completely backward, as if blown by an invisible thing. The old man still calmly kept walking. "Don't turn back." Allah stood frozen. "Did you just hear that?" "Yes." "What was it?" The old man was silent for a very long time, then replied, "Shadows." Allah thought he had misheard. "Shadows. They are the shadows that have forgotten their masters." The scratching sound on the stone echoed again, this time closer. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Allah felt the back of his neck go freezing cold. By reflex, he gripped the lamp tightly. The flame burned a bit brighter. Right at that exact moment, the scratching sound disappeared. The old man nodded slightly. "Don't let that flame go out. At least, don't let it go out." Before we reached the library, the path ahead still stretched into the darkness. But for the first time, Allah had a feeling that something was following the two of them, not in front, but right behind his back. Allah did not turn back, not because he didn't want to, but because of a very strange feeling, that if he turned around, he would see something he shouldn't see. The sound of scratching on the stone had disappeared, but the feeling of being watched was still there, like a pair of eyes quietly watching his every breath. The lamp in his hand gave off a pale amber light. It was not strong, but enough to keep the darkness a few steps away. The old man was still walking ahead. His steps were steady, not fast, not slow. It seemed he had walked this path hundreds of times. After nearly an hour, the path began to widen. It was no longer a narrow stone passageway, but a huge corridor formed by nature. Both sides of the stone walls were covered with ancient symbols. Allah stopped immediately. Those symbols did not look like writing. Each symbol was like a miniature picture. There was a shape of a lamp, a shape of a bird's wing, a shape of a person opening a book, a shape of stars falling to the ground. Allah reached out his hand to touch a symbol. The old man spoke up immediately. Don't. Why? Because those are not drawings. Allah froze. Then what are they? They are memories. He pulled his hand back. The old man stepped closer to the wall. He looked at a symbol that had almost faded away. His voice lowered. Everyone who has ever passed through this place left behind a piece of memory, not for others to read, but so this place itself remembers that they once existed. Allah was silent. For the first time in his life, he thought of something. Maybe even stones know how to remember. The path continued to lead them deeper. The air began to change. The smell of sand disappeared. Instead, it was the smell of old paper, the smell of old wood, the smell of ink. Allah stopped. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath. That scent was exactly like the small room where he repaired books. Only one thing was different. It was older, so old that it seemed to have been here since before Aram was built. The old man looked at him. What do you smell? A library. The old man smiled. For the first time, you answered without using your eyes. After walking for a few more minutes, the corridor ended. In front of them was a door. Not big, not grand, only a head taller than Allah, made of dark wood that had faded over time. No lock, no handle, only an old bronze ring hanging in the middle. The strangest thing was that on the door, there was no dust at all, as if someone still cleaned it every day. Allah stepped forward. Is this the library? The old man shook his head. Not yet. Then what is this? It is where the library decides whether it wants to meet you or not. Allah looked at the door. Do I have to knock? Yes. 3 times. No. The old man shook his head. Just once. Why? If you need to knock more than once, it means the library has already answered. It's just you don't accept the answer. Allah looked at the bronze ring. He raised his hand. Knock gently. Knock. The sound echoed very softly, then faded into the empty space. Nothing happened. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. Silence. Allah turned around. There is no one. The old man only smiled. Listen. Allah frowned. He closed his eyes. At first, there was only the sound of his own heart beating. Then, a very distant sound. Like there were thousands of pages, turning to a new page at the same time. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The sound grew louder and louder. The ground shook slightly. The bronze ring on the door swung by itself. The door slowly opened. No sound from the hinges. No sound of wood scraping. Only a cool breeze carrying the smell of old paper rushed out. Allah opened his eyes. In front of him was not a room, but a sky lying inside the door. Countless huge bookshelves lined up one after another to the horizon. Wooden bridges crossed the empty space. Hanging lamps floated like stars. Millions of books lay silently on shelves so high that the tops could not be seen. That entire space was larger than the world Allah had ever known. He stood frozen, not because of fear, but because he could no longer find the words to describe what he was seeing. The old man walked past him. For the first time, he bowed his head, as if greeting an old friend, then whispered, "We are home." Allah still stood still in front of the door. The lamp in his hand suddenly grew brighter, not because the flame grew bigger, but because, deep inside the library, there was another lamp that answered his light.